New crib came with cameras. Duck got nailed, no hammers.
You know I'm official. You know I'm against you.
Ain't no more FBG.
King Von was known for his storytelling, his street ties, and his ride-or-die crew. But at the center of it all was one name, Muop, one of his closest friends.
Never leave my team. Early morning, wake up, I was yawning. Round the crack of dawn and folks them call me.
Whispers in the streets claimed Von wasn't just looking out for his guys. He was allegedly putting money behind the beef, paying his close homie to take out his enemies.
I been knew King Von dropped 100K when he first did it to kill FBG Duck.
But was this true? Did King Von bankroll Muop to handle his ops? Or was this just another case of street legends turning into rap myths? Let's break it all down. We've all heard those classic Hollywood stories. Someone with crazy potential ends up throwing it all away over one bad decision or just plain bad luck. But for Marcus Smart, aka Muop, it wasn't just bad luck. It was the choices he made, specifically riding for King Von, that sealed his fate.
Like, man, I don't know how to rap, man. I don't know how to do nothing with rap.
And it's crazy.
Back in 20, Muop was just starting to make noise in the rap game. Some folks even thought he could have been the next big thing, a future rap millionaire. And honestly, it made sense. He had the street cred, King Von backing him, a unique voice that stood out. And he was tight with Lil Durk, who was running the game at the time. Everything was lining up for Muop to blow up in a major way, but things took a different turn. Just as he was gearing up to drop his debut project, everything came crashing down. Muop found himself in some serious trouble, caught up in a high-profile case alongside 4 other dudes. The charge? Allegedly being involved in the broad daylight offing of FBG Duck.
The jury convicted 6 men for the murder of rapper FBG Duck. FBG Duck, whose real name is Carlton Weekly, was shot and killed while shopping in the Gold Coast back in August 2020.
Muop grew up in Parkway Gardens, better known as O Block, so naturally, he got caught up in all the beef that came with it. Back in the late 2000s, O Block was called Wick City, and that's when they started beefing with a GD set called STL-EBT. The exact reason for the beef isn't totally clear, but things really popped off in 2011 when a well-respected Wick City member, O.D. Perry, was shot and killed. Nobody was officially charged for O.D.'s offing, but it was supposedly payback from STL-EBT for the death of 15-year-old Tuka. After O'Day was killed, Wick City changed its name to O Block, and the war with the GDs has been going strong ever since. Not much is known about Muop's early life, but one thing for sure, he was real tight with King Von. He was actually with Von the night he was killed in Atlanta. On top of that, Muop was allegedly involved in getting back at one of Von's biggest enemies, FBG Duck. It was Von who first got Muop into rapping, and Muop even talked about it when he was on the Drew Mania podcast in August 2021.
But I was around Von. Von was telling me like, man, you might as well start rapping.
Muop decided to jump into the rap game and started dropping tracks in 20. Even though he was new to it, he was already pulling in numbers and getting ready to drop his debut project. But just when it seemed like he was about to take off, he got hit with that offing charge tied to FBG Duck's death. What makes the whole situation even crazier is the talk that King Von allegedly put a $100,000 bounty on FBG Duck's head.
I been knew King Von dropped 100K when he first did it to kill FBG Duck. I told my big cousin when we watched it happen, I said, watch, he just did murder for hire. Now y'all catching on.
This has got a lot of people wondering, did Von really care about Muop as much as he claimed? If Von was making legit money and had the connections to help Muop blow up in rap, why let him get caught up in something that could take everything away? Why not push him towards success instead of dragging him into a situation that could ruin his life? What's wild is that King Von learned everything he knew about the rap game from Lil Durk. Durk put Von on game about how to move in the industry, but Von didn't do the same for Muop. Instead of setting him up for success, Von kept Muop close as his hitman, using him for street business instead of helping him make it in music. And Muop, he leaned into that role. He chose the life of a hitter, a killer, basically Von's puppet. That decision landed him in prison and cut his rising rap career short.
Ground.
I ain't do nothing.
Yeah, you didn't do nothing. Relax.
Okay?
You guys with him?
So how did it all go so wrong? How did someone with so much potential get caught up in a life that led to such a tragic end? Let's take a deeper dive. On the morning of August 4th, was the worst of 2020, things in O Block were business as usual. Guys chilling outside, openly selling weed, calling it Tuka and Zaza like it was nothing. They were so comfortable that they didn't even care about being caught on live video, casually talking about what they were doing. It was like they had no worries about broadcasting their own crimes for the world to see. But as reckless as that was, what happened later that day took things to a whole new level. That same morning, around 4 a.m., FBG Duck woke up in a bad mood. He was still hurting from his brother Brick's offing, so he jumped on Facebook and posted a status was basically saying he was angry and hoping to run into his brother's killer. What he didn't know was that fate had something crazy in store for him that very day. Fast forward to the afternoon of August the 4th, and Duck is out shopping in the Gold Coast, one of the most high-end areas in Chicago. People compare it to Rodeo Drive in LA. It's the kind of place where you'd see luxury stores, expensive cars, and tourists enjoying the upscale vibes. But that day, it would become the scene of something much darker. Duck was still dealing with everything that had happened, just trying to go about his day, not knowing his enemies were already closing in. While he was out shopping, 2 cars pulled up, coming from about 30 minutes away, straight from O Block, heading right to where he was. At around 4:37 p.m., Duck stepped out of the Dolce & Gabbana store, probably thinking it was just another regular day. But out of nowhere, around 4 masked shooters jumped out of the gas and started letting off shots. Duck tried to fight back. He pulled out his gun and attempted to fire. But fate wasn't on his side that day. His gun jammed. In that split second, he was hit, dropping to the ground as bullet after bullet tore through him. Some reports say Duck was shot as many as 38 times, an almost unbelievable number. Just like that, he was left there to die as the shooter sped off, leaving chaos behind. A man and a woman who were with Duck at the time were also hit, but by some miracle, they survived.
It was very rapid fire. There was no stop. It was very, very scary.
As Duck lay on the ground, struggling for his life, a crowd started gathering, scared, shocked, and confused. Some people even pulled out their phones to record, capturing the brutal aftermath. Eventually, a 12-minute video of the scene was uploaded online, showing Duck in his final moments. Duck's offing wasn't just another Chicago shooting. It was carried out in broad daylight, in a high-end shopping district, making headlines around the world. Reporters even compared it to mob hits from the 1930s. The sheer boldness of the hit meant Duck's death was everywhere in the media. But the most heartbreaking part? His own mother found out about her son's offing through the news, before she even had the chance to identify his body. And to make things even worse, she had to watch the people out in the streets cheering when they heard he was dead.
Somebody actually clapped in the crowd when they pronounced my son being deceased. You heard somebody say, "I hit the floor."
The pain didn't stop there. Chicago's mayor added insult to injury, brushing Duck off as just another gangster who fancied himself a rapper. She completely ignored the fact that Duck had been trying to turn his life around after his brother's offing. He had even made a promise to his mom to focus on music and leave the streets behind. But now that chance was gone forever. For over a year after FBG Duck's offing, justice was nowhere to be found. His killers were out there, living their lives with zero consequences, acting like they were untouchable.
I went to his crime scene. You know, Duck death is one of the I ever seen. You know, people gotta understand, this guy's standing in a pandemic line.
And what made it even crazier? They weren't hiding. They weren't laying low. They were out in the streets, all over social media, flaunting every bit of clout they could get from being linked to one of the most shocking offings in Chicago history. It was almost like they were proud of what they had done. After Duck's offing, it was no surprise that cops started parking multiple squad cars around O Block, keeping a close watch. They weren't just there for show. They were there to prevent the inevitable retaliation. They even warned people in the neighborhood to keep their kids inside because things were about to get ugly. The police knew exactly where the bullets that took Duck's life had come from. And it wasn't hard to guess that sooner or later, someone was going to send some back in that same direction. But actually building a solid case to catch Duck's killers, that wasn't going to happen overnight. Luckily for the authorities, the guys involved in the hit started dropping hints and clues almost immediately. On the very same day that FBG Duck was killed, a rapper from O Block named C Thang posted a picture on Instagram. In the photo, he's flashing the GD Killer hand sign with a caption that read, "Anyway, GDK." That was a direct nod to a King Von lyric. And Muop, he took things even further. He jumped on a song and straight up bragged about the killing.
Muop from the O, I want them get back up. If you looking tough, get back, boy.
On the other hand, Lil Durk went live on Instagram, stepping off a private jet like it was nothing. He didn't say much, but the comments were going crazy with people talking about Duck's offing. It almost felt like Durk was putting on a show, making sure everybody, especially the cops, knew he was nowhere near Chicago when it all went down. Basically, the perfect alibi. He even tweeted just hours before the hit that he was out of town, locking in his story. Lil Reese even backed him up, making sure everyone knew Durk wasn't in the city. But that didn't stop people from speculating that Durk's quick IG live right after Duck's death was all part of a bigger plan to clear his name. And then, about an hour and a half after Duck was shot, Durk tweeted, "Rest in peace, Newski," a shout out to his cousin, who was also killed. Some people took that as a slick way of addressing the situation without actually saying too much. So it was obvious that Duck's death hit home for Durk too. And if that wasn't enough, just a day after Duck was killed, King Von dropped a new track with Durk called All These NS. The song didn't directly mention Duck, but the timing was wild. The track had Von's usual talk about having bodies from way back, and the fact that they still dropped it right after Duck's offing made it clear O Block and their affiliates weren't about to stay quiet. And the disrespect didn't stop there. The same day the song dropped, Nemo 600 went live on IG, chilling and smoking, while people in the comments kept asking if he was smoking on Duck. He didn't even try to deny it. Dude straight up showed off a custom Duck RIP pack, making it clear they weren't holding back. He wasn't the only one either. 600 Breezy teased a snippet of an FBG Duck diss track, basically asking fans if he should still drop it now that Duck was gone. The disrespect levels were off the charts.
Dead on that block, huh? This song's gonna get you.
Then, just 10 days after Duck's offing, King Von popped up at Icebox Jewelers in Atlanta, picking up a bunch of custom O-Block chains flooded with diamonds. It was like his whole crew was making a statement without even saying much. Von even posted a list of names of the people getting those chains, making it crystal clear who was in his inner circle. We don't know exactly what was engraved on each one, but if you take a close look at the backside of Von's massive O-Block chain, you get a pretty good idea of what it was about. The chain had the names of 9 fallen O-Block affiliates, a crosshair symbol with the number 64, and the tagline O-Block for life. Von kept the biggest chain for himself, while the smaller ones went to the crew, including some of the same guys now locked up for Duck's offing. C-Offing and Muop, 2 key players, were out here flexing their new chains all over Instagram, showing off their new ice like they had just won a championship. DQ, another O-Block member, got his chain personally handed to him by King Von himself. Now, just to clear things up, Von had been planning to give his guys these custom chains months before FBG Duck's offing. This wasn't some last-minute move in response to Duck's death. In fact, Von was on social media as far back as May 20 talking with his crew about the designs, getting their input, and even working with Icebox to make them happen. But here's where it gets interesting. Those chains didn't start really popping up until 10 days after Duck's offing. That's also when Icebox dropped a full video on YouTube where Von himself explained that some of these chains were being customized specifically for getbacks and revenge missions.
I said we got 12 production. 12.
For example, there was a special chain made for the Sherrod squad, inspired by the vengeance of Sherrod. So, with his whole team iced out, his biggest rival out of the picture, and what some saw as the biggest get back of his career under his belt, It would have made perfect sense for Von to step away from the streets and put all his focus into his music career. And in true King Von fashion, the day after getting those O-Block chains, he was right back on Instagram, teasing new tracks.
Grandson, president, be cool and get your Trump, ain't talking elephant.
But here's the thing, while Von was trying to hype up his new music, his fans were way more locked in on the drama surrounding Duck's death. The comments were going crazy, with people bringing up the offing instead of the music. It got so wild that Von had to step in, telling people to chill out and stop mentioning Duck. But even though he tried to shut it down, the topic wasn't going away. As the days passed, both he and his crew started leaning into it, getting more comfortable with the fact that fans were constantly bringing up Duck's offing. Just a few days later, Von went live on IG while shopping with DQ, and he couldn't resist throwing some shade at the Opps. He told his viewers, ain't no more FBG, a small jab, but just enough to keep the drama alive.
Come on, play. I don't even be playing like that. All that dissing, or saying something, or even acting like y'all with some shit that y'all know for sure ain't with. Ain't no more FBG.
But one of the wildest examples of self-snitching in this whole saga went down on August 31st, 2020. That's when an interview with Boss Top from O-Block dropped. In the interview, Boss Top was posted up on the block, surrounded by his guys, talking about life before fame, his relationships with King Von and Lil Durk, and more.
Okay, he's like, you got anything about FBG Duck? You know what I'm saying? You know, don't say Troy.
But here's the thing, if you're gonna bring a vlogger into your gang's territory, you might want to be a little more careful about what you say and where you say it, because this interview ended up being loaded with some pretty incriminating details. Right off the bat, they walked onto the block, and the first thing they did was tell the camera that their homies were smoking brick and duck.
We got phone rolling up brick over there, phone rolling up brick over there, phone putting the duck out right there. Oh, we got a lot of.
If you check the comments on that video, you'll see a bunch of people pointing out something crazy. There's a car parked nearby that looks a lot like the one used in FBG Duck's offing. People were quick to notice the resemblance, and the speculation started flying. Was it just a coincidence, or did they really just have the getaway car sitting right there on camera while talking reckless? One person wrote, not only did Boss Top state the obvious, they had the same car used in Duck's hit, parked in O-Block. It definitely raised some eyebrows, especially since this interview was recorded less than a month after a high-profile gang offing in the middle of a busy street. So here they are, inviting vloggers to their block, recording everything, and possibly implicating themselves in the process. And if that wasn't bad enough, Boss Top made it even worse. At one point, he steps in front of the camera and tells the vlogger he's willing to answer any questions. Naturally, he gets asked about FBG Duck, and his response? Wild. Boss Top immediately says that Duck should have dissed their dead homie Troy, but then he catches himself, realizing he might have just said too much. He quickly shuts up, but by then, it was already out there.
Did you know him? Who, Duck? Did you know him before, like everything? Like that. I don't know. Okay. All I know, don't say about Troy. Or
the most incriminating part of the interview? Yeah, that got edited out about a year before the arrest went down. But by then, it was already too late. The clip had already been saved, shared, and circulated online. And to this day, you can still find it floating around. Fast forward to October 2021, and everything hit the fan. Muop, C-Thang, C-Murder, Lust, and Kenny, all O-Block affiliates, got hit with a RICO indictment for FBG Duck's offing, along with a bunch of other charges.
5 alleged Chicago street gang members now facing federal charges in connection with the shooting death of a local rapper downtown.
At first, nobody knew what kind of evidence the feds had. But then, the news broke. Muop and the rest of the crew got caught on camera. Now Muop and 5 other O-Block members have been found guilty of FBG Duck's offing, and they're all sitting behind bars. Most people would think going to prison for life is the worst thing ever. But Muop, he's apparently cool with it. In fact, word on the street is that he's actually asking for a longer sentence. Yeah, you read that right. He might just be the only rapper out here who wants to stay locked up, maybe even forever. They've already lost King Von, one of their biggest stars. And now, a bunch of key members are facing serious RICO charges. The days of O-Block running the streets, they might just be coming to an end.